Good morning, boys and girls. We are on page 43 in our math book. We are on lesson 8 homework, so make sure you are turning to the correct page, page 43 in your math book. Okay? So, for the first question, it asks you to write the decomposition that helps you and then round to the given place value. So, they want you to round the number, okay, to the place value that is being given. We do not need to draw number lines unless it helps you. You can, if it helps explain your thinking, you can do that. And we don't need to circle the rounded value on each number line. But just a reminder, I'm going to put this here so that you can see it as well. So a reminder that 5 or more, you raise the score. 5 or more, you raise the score, meaning you add 1. And then 4 or less, you let it rest, meaning you keep it the same and you just kind of add your zeros, okay? So we keep it the same at that point. So the first number we have here is 43 and 586 thousandths. The first thing they want us to do is round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so we're looking right here which one is our nearest tenth. I'm going to highlight it. Our tenth number. This is our tens, our ones, our tenth, hundredths, and thousands. So this is our tenths place. And if you don't remember, then please make sure you are using your place value chart. So this is the place value chart, and you'll see the same thing. Your ones, your tens, your hundreds, your thousands. On the other side, tenths, hundreds, thousands, and so on. Okay? So we look at our tenth place value, and we look at our neighbor. Our neighbor is an 8. What does it say? 5 or more, you're going to add 1. So I'm going to add 1 to my 10th place. And the rest of my numbers are going to change to zeros. So my new number is 43 and 600. Okay? You can write it as this, or you can just not have the zeros. That is up to you. Now, for problem B, we have hundredths. Okay, we have 43 and 586 thousandths. So they want us to round to the hundredths place. This is our hundredths place right here, our 8. How do I know? I went from my tens, my ones, my tenths, hundredths, thousands. So looking at my hundredths place, I'm going to look at my neighbor, which is a 6. 5 or more, you're going to raise the score, which means you're going to add 1. So I'm adding 1. 8 plus 1 is equal to 9, and then I'm going to write the rest of my numbers. What happens to the numbers after the hundredths place? They change to 0. So my final answer, when I round to the nearest hundredths place, I get 43 and 59 hundredths. Okay, now what if you're rounding to your ones place? Your 3 is in the ones place, okay? Now I'm going to look at my neighbor, and it is a 5. 5 or more, you're going to add 1. So I'm going to add 1 to my 3. 3 plus 1 is equal to 4, and bring the rest of my numbers down on this side. However, this side, all of my numbers are going to change to zeros. So that means that my answer is 44. You can get rid of the zeros like this, or you can have the zeros. That's up to you. Either answer is correct. Now, we're going to move on to problem B. For problem B, it states here that 243 and 875 thousandths is going to be rounded to the nearest tenth, hundredths, tenths, and hundred. Okay, so they want you to do tenth, hundred, tenth, and hundred. Tenth, TH. That means that you are going to be looking at your 8 because that is your tenths place. Okay, I'm going to look at my number next door. So 5 or more, I'm going to add 1. In this case, it is 5 or more. So I'm going to add 1, and the rest of my numbers change to zeros. So now I have 243 and 9. Okay, so that is my final answer. You can add the zeros, or you don't have to add the zeros. That's up to you. Next, they want us to round to the hundredths place. This is our tenths. The 8 is the tenths. 7 is the hundredths place. So I'm going to highlight that so you can see that. We're going to look at our neighbor, which is a 5. I'm going to add 1. Okay, so I have 243.8, and then 7 plus 1 is also 8. My 5 changes to a 0. Now the next problem, they asked me to round to the tens place. I have a number 4, okay? 4 or less, you let it rest. That means you don't change anything except for the numbers behind it are all going to change to zeros, okay? So I have 24, and then I add my 0, my decimal, and all my other zeros. Now, for the last one, they ask you to round to the hundredths place. The 2 is in the hundredths place. Remember, we have our ones, our tens, and our hundreds. So I'm going to look at my neighbor. My neighbor is a 4. 4 or less, let it rest. That means everything else changes to 0. So I have 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So if I were to round that number to the hundredths place, it would be rounded to 200. Now, for problem number 2, it says here, a trip from New York City to Seattle is 2,852.1 miles. A family wants to make the drive in 10 days, driving the same number of miles each day. About how many miles will they drive each day? Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a mile. So the first thing here is I need to divide 2,852.1 miles into 10 days. So that means I'm going to divide it by 10. And remember your place value chart. You are going to draw your place value chart. You're going to have your ones, your tens, your hundreds, and your thousands. On the other side, your 1/10s and 100s. And then I'm plugging in my number right here, 2,852.1. Okay? Now they're asking me to divide by 10, okay? Remember when you are dividing by 10, because you're trying to figure out 10 days split up, then you are going to move to your right. How many times? 1 time, because there is only 1 0. So I would move my 2 over to the right 1 time and include all of my other numbers. So my new number right now is going to be 258.21. Now, after I receive that number, remember the second part, it asks you to round your answer to the nearest tenth of a mile. We have our hundreds, our tens, our ones. This is our tenths, and this is our hundreds. So the 2 is in the tenths place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my neighbor. 4 or less, let it rest. So in this case, that changes to a 0. So right now I'm going to have 258.2. That is my final answer, 258.2. So there is about 258.2 miles per day, okay? And that is all for your homework today. I want you to cross off problems 3 and problems A and B on page 44, okay? We don't have to do that one because I don't think it's going to be relevant. So I want you to just focus on the rounding as of right now and getting used to rounding, okay? Let me know if you have any questions in class, and I will see you then. Have a great day.